Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on time. My name is Brother Ray Ray. I'd like to welcome everyone to the African Helping Africans Lecture Group, 103 Quincy Street. We meet here twice a month. It will be no lecture on the 8th. The next lecture is supposed to be April the 8th. There will be no
No, there's election in 2 weeks, brother.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
There's election, you talking about the one after, a month from now.
Yeah, there's a March 25th.
The one on the 24th is the irritated genie.
The 25th, my mistake, the 25th we will have the irritated genie.
The
It will be
24th,
election.
yeah.
25th. I have to announce that next week for... Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to African Helping Africans Lecture Group. I'd like to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you.
We meet here twice a month to bring history at its best. We meet in the honor of Louis Ray Rivera, Dr. Professor William Mackey, Amos Wilson, Brother Gil Noble, Dr. Beck, Brother Malcolm X, Ivan Van Sertima, George Simmons, all the historians who gave up a good life, could have lived excellent lives, fame and fortune. They could have rode the wave like Skip Gates, who will please white folks at any given time. And the Netflix program on Malcolm X, Skip Gates had a lot to do with it.
Oh, yeah.
It said Henry Louis Gates and Bernstein and all these other folks. So you got to be careful,
Very careful.
like Truss was saying, because now you're going to have the media and high-profile Jews telling us our history. It's going to be dead.
Thanks, brother.
They're already running around talking about another attorney, Crump. Is the attorney at war. And there's only one attorney at war, and that's Alton H. So we meet and honor these people who sacrificed and gave up good lives. They could have went that way, but they chose to tell the truth to their people. And in this time, they are being forgotten. So we want to also congratulate Brother Truss for his excellent lecture on Black History Month. We want to thank him. I have his tape right here, The History of the Nation of Islam, the 6-hour documentary that he did. And we also have the one he did on the assassination of Malcolm X. So we have that there. Now, we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. Blueprint for Black Power. Bring it over. You got it? This new book, Sababa, finished in honor of Amos. The psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat towards a reclamation of the African mind. 5 years in the making. Louis Ray Rivera, Jazz in Jail. Amos Wilson's classic, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order. Brother Earl Ponder passed away, and Sababa had a lot of his books from African World Info Systems. So I took a few of them, revealing the unspeakable Bible verses, the truth about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the Holy Trinity. He passed away. Issues of Manhood in Black and White, The Falsification of African Consciousness, and Amos's classic, Black on Black Violence, The Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. When you read that book, you will not be asking any questions on black violence. Because the order of the day is that Well, what are you talking about? We killing our own self. Amos's classic gets into that. I'm almost finished. The Osiris Papers, a reflection of the life and writings of Dr. Francis Quinn Wilson by Raymond Winbush and Denise Rapp. This book is unbelievable. Black Classic Press has it. I can also get it. But I'm going to read something real quick and then I'm going to turn it over to our keynote speaker. Page 178, 179. Another ongoing civil rights violation is the subversion of voting rights from Reconstruction to the present barriers have been erected to the limit of voting power for non-whites, including the grandfather clause, literacy test, felon disenfranchisement, and voter identification, all to ensure white domination over policy and politics. 1 out of every 13 blacks has lost voting rights due to felony disenfranchisement versus 1 in every 56 whites. In the 2000 U.S. presidential election, 90,000 suspected felons were removed from the voting rolls in Florida without verification. 97% were innocent, and George W. Bush won by 537 votes. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, ACL, 21 million Americans did not have government issue identification. 25% of blacks are voting age compared to 8% of whites. Presently, 70% of the state is in the U.S. now have laws that promote some form of voter suppression. In the words of Dr. Wilson, black people are afraid, but black people are going to have to get over their fear. It is this mantra we as black people must use in order to assert our rights under a constitution that was predicated on the tenets of white supremacy. Although the power of the vote, legislation, and enforcement has been utilized to assess the continuation of mental and physical genocide of people of African descent as a collective, we must understand the systematic nature of the intent. Black people must not participate in our own annihilation by continuing to internalize the tenets of white supremacy. Dr. Wilson gave us the words and roadmap to understand the policies of a genocidal system created by non-whites. We must begin to minimize the impact of our prodigy and our future in the courts of the people. We charge genocide. And I believe in some form or fashion we are truly scared. That's why they constantly show the beatings. That's why they constantly show the mutilations. That's why they constantly show the terror inflicted. That's why they constantly will show a police officer throwing a 97-year-old woman to the ground. Wow. That's why they constantly will show police officers beating Rodney King or us hanging. That's why Dr. Ben, Professor Mackey, Dr. Lewis, Brother Mike, sacrifice. See, these people sacrifice because they didn't have to do that. They could just mosey on along in the sunset. So you're talking about a decision to sacrifice to tell the truth. That's why we meet here. Tuesdays, 5 o'clock on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. www.Manhattan Neighborhood Network, the hottest show in New York. Brother Mike, 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement, Mike Graves, Noel Leader, Julian Harper, Father Lawrence Williams. Manhattan Neighborhood Network. They come on at 5 o'clock every Tuesday. Tune in. 5 to 5:30, then you can call in. Also, while everybody is moving and grooving, dancing and prancing on a Saturday, 10:30 on Blog Talk Radio. Sister Empress Chi. New Day Radio, 10:30, you stroll down and you could go from 10:30 all the way to after 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock. All the news coming out of Philadelphia. Sister Tawana from Baltimore is very excellent. and you tune in at 10:30. Also, Brother Trust Graham has African Echoes on Friday. That's a study group that's unbelievable. If you really think you're doing some studying, if you go listen to Trust, you find out you don't know jack. But these people sacrifice, and they live hard lives because they made a choice to tell the truth. Without further ado, we're going to go 8:05 to 9. 9 is going to be a break. 9, 10 minutes. The refreshments that I have, I'm going to serve while the lecture is going on. I'm going to bring you the soup and whatever refreshments, I'm going to bring it to you. And then the break is going to be from 9 to about 10 minutes after 9 if you want to purchase books, conversate, this and that. And then Dr. Lewis will come back 10 minutes after 9 and ring it all the way around to 10 o'clock with questions and answers, whatever you want to ask. And then he's going to continue with the lecture. We're going to close it down 10, maybe 5 minutes after 10. So there's a lot of things going on with this coronavirus. So Dr. Lewis is going to speak on the coronavirus and the collapse of the American empire. I want everybody to give a big hand to Professor Dr.
Good evening, African community. My name is Dr. Arthur Lewis. I'm one of the African living in the United States of America, and we're doing this lecture series, educational seminar from Brooklyn, New York, and it's in the African community. So we are speaking to all of the world, but especially for African people. And when we say all of the world, is because we're trying to bring information to correct the perception that has been put out by those people around the world who do not like African people. So we are talking and lecturing so that we could set the records right. I want to give appreciation for everyone here who has been supplying me with information. I get all kinds of information. It helps me to put together what I'm doing here so that the most comprehensive presentation can be done. So I'm preparing this material, but it also is prepared by the individuals who supply me with the information. So the lecture information is a contribution of all of us. And I'm just one of the individuals who have been given the opportunity to speak with you. Today, the third month, February the 11th, 2020.
March.
Sorry, March.
Yes.
The 11th, 2020. And here we present the material in a written form, in the form of a pamphlet, so that you will have something in writing that you can read, verify, check out, and do further study. And as we indicate before, any material that we present here is material that is in the public domain around the world in the United States. It doesn't contain any secret information or any other kind of information. It's in the public domain, but what we're doing is just putting the pieces together so that we try to project a certain picture or image. So in this particular handout, I believe it's 7 pages, and the 7 pages has information on it. And the information is for you to read and research with making the assumption that there's information that you come across that I don't know. Information I come across that we are now applying so that we're spreading information. It's 7 pages. 5 of the pages is put together in such a way that it is headlined. So it has about 20 different topics here. There's certain topics we're going to introduce and we're going to expand on. There's a second handout, 3-page handout that we'll give out to each one of you at the break at 10 o'clock. Okay. So we're going to name this lecture The Decline of the U.S. Empire. And the individual said, what are you talking about the U.S., the United States of America Empire? And they said, what is this empire? The empire is centered in the United States. of America. And it represents the influence that the government of the United States of America had been able to exert over different parts of the world after 1944-45, what they call World War II, when there was the breakup of the European powers. And that meant then that different areas that were under control of Europeans at that time, the Asians, the Africans, and South Americans, that structure had begun to loosen up. But the United States was able to step in as the dominant power at that point and plant itself into different parts of the world as a dominant force. And an example of it is the United States' influence over, after World War II, over Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines. And that was because the Japanese were fighting the Asians from about 1937. And by the time the United States entered the war in 1941, the Japanese had already been defeated by the Asians. But the United States was able to step in just before Japan collapsed and put their military to dominate. The same thing in Europe. The Russians had fought the Germans and defeated them. And then the United States entered the war 9 months before it was over. So Germany and Russia were fighting each other from 34, 35, 36, 37, all the way up to 44. And after these 7, 8 years, then the United States came in the last year and introduced itself and got its claws in. So the United States did not fight or win World War II against the Germans, the Russians did. And they did not fight against and defeat the Japanese because the Asians were fighting them and weakening them. By the time the United States went in to the small islands, Japan had already been ready to surrender. The Russians were going to come down to occupy. The United States dropped the bomb. The dominance that the United States had over Central and South America, because of the history, we went over there with Smedley Butler, and the dominance that the United States was able to exert over Africa primarily came as a result of colonial preference. In other words, after 2 so-called world wars, when England paid the United States for help by giving gold. During World War I. After World War II, it had no more gold, of which it had stolen out of Africa and other places. So their white English cousins in the U.S. said to their white English cousins in England, this is the way you can pay me for the help that we gave you during World War II. Colonial preference. Colonial preference meant because Britain had dominance over certain parts of the world, India, but let's go to Africa. Britain controlled certain aspects of Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and different parts. Because of its stranglehold, it enriched themselves. So the Germans, the Europeans, and Americans were blocked by the British from coming into Africa to trade and steal. So colonial preference said, 44, Bretton Woods Conference, the English said, give me a piece of Africa to pay me for what help I gave you. And that's how the United States of America got into Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa, because their cousins had the covenant. The United States of America never made any investment in Africa at all. They got in as payment from the British and say, well, let's split the stealing from Africa. Those are the areas when we call the U.S. global empire, what they had in Central South America, what they had over Africa, what they had over Asia, and what they had over Europe. Subsequent to that, coming from 44 up to now, we know about those revolutionary movements where Africans fought for their independence against the United States, where the Asians drove the United States and Europeans out of Asia through the Indo-China War, through the Chinese Civil War, through Vietnamese War, the Korean War. They pushed them out. We pushed them out of Africa through our liberation. And now the Europeans finally are putting themselves together to get rid of the United States from Europe. So when we say that this collapsing empire, those are the areas we're talking about. Central South America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. That's what's declining, and we're just going to deal with that decline as succinctly as we can. A little bit international, but mainly it's centered on what is happening to the United States of America. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the opening statement. We read Spendy Butler's opening statement a number of times, so we're going to go to our elder and our ancestor, Francis Cress Welsing, and I'm going to read for you, which you have the page, on racism. Function of definition of racism, white supremacy, and apartheid. People say, why are you reading this? Because it is the last 200 or 300 years that Europeans from Western Europe were able to leave Europe and cause this Holocaust on everyone, using this system of white racism and apartheid. So this is what Francis Cress Welsing has said. That's one of our historians, medical doctors, psychiatrists, and genius. And this is what she says about racism. And she wanted to put it this way, and I wanted to use it just to put in your mind so you understand what we're dealing with. She said racism is white supremacy equal apartheid. As a black behavioral, because she was a psychiatrist, as a black behavioral scientist and practicing psychiatrist, my own functional definition of racism, quote, white supremacy, is as follows. 1, racism, white supremacy, is the local and global power system and dynamic structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously, and determine which consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol, and formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people's activity, economic, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war, for the ultimate purpose of the white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic survival on the planet Earth, a planet upon which the vast and overwhelming majority of the people are classified as non-white, black, brown, yellow, and red, by white-skinned people, and all of the non-white people are genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to the genetic recessive white. And then she goes on to give you a little more information of which you can read about it. The system of racism, white supremacy, utilize deception, violence, chemical warfare, biological warfare, psychological warfare, indeed any means necessary to achieve its ultimate goal, objective of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on the planet Earth. In the existing system of racism, white supremacy, when the term is undefined and poorly understood, there is a general confusion and chaos as to the part of the victims of the system, quote, local, national, and global. It then becomes impossible for the victim of the racism, white supremacy, to effectively counter the global system, the African enslavement, imperialism, colonialism, neo-colonialism, fascism, etc., all dimensions, aspects of the system of racism, white supremacy. Signed, Francis Cress Welsing, MD. Second page is a picture, 2 pictures. And it's a picture that I took out, and the picture reads, there's 2 petri dishes to capture viruses. The picture reads, virus falling from the sky in their billions every day. And then basically what is just illustrated, they did an experiment. They took 3 by 3 square, and they put petri dishes around different parts of the globe. And they found out that in that 3-foot square, you breathe in at least 1 billion viruses a day. They're all over. So where this coronavirus comes in, we will discuss it. But there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of coronavirus, and there are millions of viruses you breathe in. The bottom line here is showing 2 individuals who are using some kind of mask for protection, and it says, corona, this is coming from, you can Google it. Virus falling from the skies in the billion every day. You Google this. Coronavirus may be produced, may be the product of a U.S. biological attack aimed at Iran and China. So the Iranians say. Okay? And so that's the part we're going to do. The coronavirus, we'll discuss it at 9 o'clock. You inhale millions and billions of viruses every day. U.S. CDC, Center for Disease Control, say about 40,000 individuals in the nursing home and hospitals of the United States die every year from these viruses. Okay. The third page you have here is a clipping. It's from the final call, February 18th, 2020. President Trump slams immigration door on more countries. When we read the short clip, it's alluding to the fact that he's putting a ban on additional ban on 7 African and Muslim countries. He's trying to prevent the immigration into the country of African people. And so you see Trump here. And this little excerpt from the final call will tell you what they said, he said at the UN. Now, the reason I put this in, you go to the New York Times, June 8, 2015. Black dads are doing best of all. So if you believe the New York Times and the CDC, this is what they have to say. When you look this up, you'll get 4 pages. And I snipped out the most important page. This juxtaposition, what your president is going to say about us. It's on your lower corner. Now to the mythology of the black male dereliction as dads. While it is true that the black parents are less likely to marry before the child is born, it is not true that the black father suffered a pathology of neglect. In fact, a CDC report issued in December 2013 found that the black fathers were the most involved with the children daily on a number of measures of any other groups of fathers, and in many cases that was among the fathers who didn't live with the children as well as who did. And you'll get the statistics about how the African male with the African female, the government says the black family is doing the best of all the families. The government saying the white families are doing the worst with the drugs and everything else, and we'll give you the references here where the U.S. government says the white family in America is in such a crisis they call them the lost generation. Now, let's get to what Trump said here. And then we're going to go to show you what he's leaving out. It reads here, and this is from the final call, it says here, before President Donald Trump declared in his, he's talking about the, what they call it, every year, the State of the Union. Before President Trump declared in his 80-minute State of the Union that his administration is building the most prosperous and inclusive society where every citizen and community can join in America's unparalleled success. There were backlash regarding an exclusive presidential proclamation he signed days earlier aimed at more restrictions towards immigrants. The expanded travel ban included immigration from 6 additional countries, all of them in Africa or Muslim. And then they say that the next snippet is supposed to be quotes that he said from the State of the Union. I don't watch it, so I'm just using the quote here. They're saying, we, now, you got to ask yourself, who is he talking about? We.
Yeah.
You infer, I'm not going to infer. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the New World. We built the New World, claimed President Trump during his February 4th address to America in the place where he has here. Now, below, they talk about his exclusion. So he's clear on who built this country. Now, what I'm going to do is, you don't have this, but I'm going to give you some information about Donald Trump, grandfather, which you can search. So I don't have any exclusive information. I'm not putting in anything, you go to the different thing. And it's dealing with Donald Trump's grandfather and Bloomberg's grandparent. So we want to see all of these we who did this and we who did that. Let's see who he's referring to. Okay, Frederick Trump, German spelling anglicized. I'm reading this to you from my sheet that you don't have. You can check it. Donald Trump's grandfather, Frederick Trump, was born on 4/4/1869, and he died, his grandfather, 5/30/1918. He lived in Manhattan, he lived in the Southern Bronx. He was born in Karlstadt, Kingdom of Bavaria, Rhineland, which is now present Germany. Germany unified as Germany in 1871, but he was born in all these little provinces. In 1885, born in 1869, in 1885, at the age of 16, his grandfather immigrated to the United States from Bremen, Germany, to Liverpool. So the route is you get out of Germany, go to Bremen, you hit Liverpool, and they bring you over. Let's see if he's the only one who took the trip. He took his identity as a Swede. He didn't identify himself as a quote-unquote German. At that point, he was an illegal immigrant and an illegal alien because that government did not give him permission to leave. And he left to avoid military service into the German Imperial Army. He's a draft dodger. He arrived in the United States in 1885 over in a steamboat, 21 days. So you can imagine what that steamboat must have looked like, or felt like, or smelled like.
Yeah.
He arrived at Castle Garden Immigrant Landing Department, New York City. They say it's like a fortress, 200 feet from Battery Park. So they land there.
Yeah.
Now, to mention, nobody came with passport, visa, paper. They came as Martin Luther King when he reminded the United States government, you gave land to your European peasants. That's exactly what he was. They were sharecroppers in Germany. So I don't know if this is the one he's talking about who built the country. He lived with his sister in downtown Manhattan when he got here at age 16. And then they say in 1885 and 1891, he left New York and he went out to Washington and Seattle to make his money. They say in 1891, he was hooked up with some people. They brought some hotels, they rented alcohol, restaurant, they rent out rooms, and you know, with that, those minors you're dealing with, and I'm not accusing his father of the heroin from China and the prostitution. But that's the environment that he made his money, they say. 1892, he gets citizenship from as a United States citizen. 1901, he goes back, and he made money there. They said the equivalent of $500,000 at that time. 1901, they said he traveled back to Karlstadt, Germany, to get married. Came back to New York from 1901 to 1904. He went back to Bavaria, Germany, with his money and his new wife to live. And when he got there to Bavaria, they said they examined the records, and they said, you're an illegal immigrant. You're an illegal immigrant. You broke the law. You're a draft dodger. So they said they revoked his German citizenship and deported him.
Yes.
This is what they're saying. This is who Trump. Now I understand why your third generation, Trump, Bloomberg, Bezos, the rest of them, they never talk about their grandparents. Because what would they have to talk about? Now, Bloomberg, you trace back his grandfather, both of them, they both come from Russia. At that point, they were born around 1877, 1879. At that point, what is now Poland and the Balkans, they were under Russian Empire. And after the World War II, it broke up. So Bloomberg's, they say his father was one from Poland, one from Lithuania. They're Russian. And one of the grandfathers came here as an accountant. So again, the question has to be asked, where are these people, after 3 generations, what kind of structure are you coming in to the United States and you become a billionaire. Now let's just give the basic figures you can pick up for the immigration in, or all these people Trump said build a country. They said between 1855 and now let me remind you, they were running from wars. There were war all through that, there were revolution and war, so they're running from wars. The wars bring famine and disease. I'm not saying that these are the conditions. They're running from war and disease with nothing. From 1855 to 1890, the immigration into the United States came through the Castle Island, Castle Garden Immigration Landing, or from a Battery Park. And they said what they would do is pull up and tell them jump ship, swim to it. That's how they said many of them got here. 1855 to 1890, you go down the list of wars in Europe at that point. It was one century of just war. And then it would break out into World War I and then World War II, etc. Between 1855 and 1890, there were 8,300,000 of these Europeans coming in, mainly from Ireland and Germany. So when you look at all these people here, they're from Irish and Germans, you know they came in around 1855, 1890. There were 8,300,000. From 1877, another 110,000 came. 1878, another 130,000. 1879, another 180. And not only were they fleeing, but the Spanish war, and that war, that's when the white Spanish was fleeing into the Caribbean to lighten up the country. So all your white Cubans and the rest of them, that's when you get all of the whiteness coming into the Caribbean. So the Spanish are running, they run to their colonies. Okay. Ellis Island, 1892 to 1954, there were over 12 million coming in, and they were mainly from, your Italians and your the Southerners. So you got here close to 25, 30, 40 million Europeans coming, as Martin Luther King said, as peasants with nothing. And this is who Trump may be alluding to, but obviously he doesn't want to deal with that part of it. Now, I got in my hand what you don't have. I'm the only one that has the copy of this presidential executive order stating that there should be 4 historical sites in the United States. Take the United States, the 48, take the northernmost state, central, that you're going to put it. You take the southernmost state, Texas, you take the easternmost state, and west. So you have 4 of these historical sites that are put there to welcome the people coming into the country and for us to review our history. And this is a proposal of the executive order that I'm the only one in possession with. The executive order says that the structure of this welcoming museum, when you come in, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They put it in a sequential step so that you can keep it in the time period. The first is going to be memorial to George Washington, the slave owner, the first president of the United States of America. And then there's going to be a statue of George Washington, and there's going to be another statue of the white indentured servants who were slaves. Because it was their revolt that they had to come and get us. There'll be another statue of the African enslaved. So everybody will understand that George Washington was a plantation owner. He was one of the largest plantation owners, slave, and he had white slaves and African slaves. It's nonsense about white people coming indentured servants. Then the second hall you're going to go through is the statue of the lynching of an enslaved African male. Next to it is going to be, that's the African section. Next to it is going to be a statue of of the raping of an enslaved African female. So everybody get a clear of who these people are. The third section of the museum is going to be a statue of a monument to the extermination of the millions of indigenous people of the United States of America. The fourth unit you go into is going to be a monument to the European immigration into the United States from 1850 to 1920. 50 million who built the country according to your President Trump. Then we're going to enter the fifth stage of this museum. And it's going to title The Economic Collapse of the United States from 1945 to 2020. And I thought about it. Someone said to me, some white person said to me, the Chinese stole our secrets. I said, wait now. I said, you're going to have to visit this museum. What museum? I said, don't worry. And in the economic collapse of the United States, from 1845, you're going to have three statues. And one is going to be the Federal Reserve, the stock market, the banking system. And above it, you're going to get a face of a white male. Above the Federal Reserve, a white male above the stock market, a white male above the bank. And this male, if you want to know, will be a white, privileged Englishman. These are the institutions headed by these white people, because white people are confused about why you have an economic problem here. And then the question is going to be asked, you can ask the question. What happened in this period of 45 to 2020? What happened? Who outsourced 40 million jobs? Clearly these white men. Who outsourced 60,000 jobs? These white men. And who brought in millions of H-1B visas of skilled foreigners to take the jobs from Americans? So let's get it clear on who it is. Then you're going to go to a sixth department. It's going to be two divisions. One is going to be the Department of War. That's what it was called before the Department of Defense.
Right.
And under that subsection, you can push it down and you'll get the number of countries that U.S. invaded since its beginning. Then you will punch another one, the number of people killed by the United States in the millions. You press another button. And then you're going to get another button to do economic sanctions that the United States put on the other government. And finally, the question will be asked is, push the button. Why is it that 700,000 Americans die every year from the medical system doing something they should not have done? Documented. Next question. Why are you vaccinating against the will of the people diseases that don't exist here anymore? And the third thing is, why are you poisoning the air, water, and food? See, we want to get a picture, a profile of what Trump is talking about all these people who built the country and how good everything is. Next sheet. We had this in one time before, but we just want to reiterate it for you to check the facts. In this sheet, this is the first of four left. In this sheet is the upper right-hand corner, and it says, someone wrote the book, it's authored by Alfred W. McCoy, and it's called Heroin. CIA complicity in the global drug trade. I didn't say it. It's documented. And then there's another map you could show, and it shows, it's one of the reasons they're in Afghanistan. The English was taking this poppy seed from India and Africa and ran the drug trade through China. So United States run, the CIA, they run the drug. Why are they in Afghanistan? One, if you look at the central location, we swing over here, the central, you don't have a map, location of Afghanistan is here. And so the United States can now spy satellites and everything on Turkmenistan, Iran, Pakistan, Iran. They can spy on everyone. They were in Afghanistan for the gas, so that they could spy, and they're trying to block the Chinese, European, African trade hookup. They're pulling out now. So the trade goes from Afghanistan, then it goes to Turkey and Germany, and then it comes out to the United States and Europe. Almost 98% of the people on the earth who use heroin. Heroin is the poppy plant. Then when you do a chemical reaction, you get methadone, Demerol, etc. They all come off of it. 95% or more of the people on earth who use the heroin is white Europeans, white Americans. And then over here, when you have this, you can always photocopy it and pass it on. The drug money saved the banks in the global crisis, claimed the UN. So it's the drug money that sustained these banks and sustained it during it. So that drug money is there to sedate the people, mainly white now, support the banks, CIA make their money. And over here you get the references to the death rate among white people. In this section here, they talk about the H-1B visas. Over here is a young man with a ball on his foot, showing that they have the student lockdown and debt. Only entity in the United States who cannot get out of debt. Trump can get out, rescued 4 times by the Rothschild banker called Ross. The Secretary of Treasury is Ross. That's the one who bailed him out. And then they talk about in 15 years, 38% of all of the jobs here in the United States will be gone. And then this last piece here, the color of law, where they document the United States segregated the country, make it an apartheid country. Okay, we go on to this here. This is the first of 3 pages left, and we'll be winding down in about 5 minutes with your presentation. And then there's a few things we're going to begin to detail on the coronavirus. In this sheet, it says, these are, when you photocopy, you just check all of these out, internet, everything you've read. June 15, 2009, the American Empire is bankrupt. Chris Hedges wrote this long piece, 4 or 5 pages, and he documented the decline. In here, there was a meeting in Russia. There's a city in Russia, eastern Russia, called Yekaterinburg, 2009, where the Chinese, the Russian, the Indian, Pakistan, Iranian formed a formal military pact against the United States to get them out of Asia. So these countries are presently, militarily and economically, going to push them out. We push them out of Africa. They got a few bases. Those bases don't mean anything. They're pushing them out of Asia. Now, so you read this and you'll see. In reference to trade, the United States has a preferential trade agreement with the African countries. And it's going to be expired in 2025. So the United States is trying to come to each and every African country and want to trade with them one-on-one. And they told the United States, we don't do that. We have a transcontinental free trade zone. We're dealing on a multinational level with the world. So that colonial preference is not going to last. So you look at it. J.P. Morgan, July 2019. J.P. Morgan says, dump the U.S. dollar as its century of global dominance is coming to an end. Op-ed, Open News ED, a soft landing for the American empire. Pentagon is begging. What they're alluding to is the United States and empire is crashing. But the rest of the world don't want it to crash. They want the crash to be a controlled crash. They don't want a third war with nuclear weapons. They don't want to push the United States too hard where they're going to strike out with these nuclear weapons. So they want to let the thing die easy. Go to the next page. Second of the last one. These are here to show you what is happening. You may not have picked it up, and for you to do further research. Money not flowing. This is March 26, 2019. Money not flowing into the U.S. economy. The money talk about the Federal Reserve printing up all these billions of dollars digitally and giving it to all these corporations. Money not flowing into the U.S. economy because of bankers lending to their friends. Federal Reserve starts quantitative easing forever. And we mentioned quantitative easing is when the bank is broke. Chase, Citibank, they're all bankrupt. They're being kept alive by digital money. And quantitative easing means, I'm Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is, each one of you are a banker. And each one of you are a member of the Federal Reserve. So when you all go broke, all you do is come to the boys club and we print up money and give you money. You understand? That's all the Federal Reserve is there, to save the banks. So I say to you, I gotta give each of you $10 billion a day, because you broke. For whatever the reason, we'll figure it. You broke. How do I do it? You see that piece of worthless paper you have with all those mortgages that are non-performing? I'll buy it, 10 billion. You see all those non-performing loans, all those share oil companies are not paying you a dime? Give me it, I buy it. So what they do is, the way they give it to them, which is never repaid, is they buy back from their friends worthless pieces of paper. That's what they're alluding to. That's quantitative easing. When the Federal Reserve is giving electronic money to the banks. Federal money juice has tied directly to the rise of the stock market. So all of the people who have stock, and the stock crashed the other day, 1/3, you 1/3 poorer. So Bloomberg, 60 billion, he's only worth 40 billion. Only one, and you can read the extra one of JP, but they all say only 1 in 4 Americans is fit to serve in the military. So we're trying to get a picture of the economic, but let's look at the human. 1 out of 4. So what it says here is the Pentagon did a survey in 2017, and all of the information is here. 71% of the young youth are ineligible for military service. So they said 71% of the youth of the United States between the ages of 17 and 24, the next generation,
Useless.
cannot be entered into the military service because of poor health and obesity. Now, it's supposed to be the cream of your crop, 17 to 24. Criminality, and no high school diploma. So that's telling you what this country is doing to the human next generation. So if you want to get an idea, say, what are you talking about? We are just trying to spot check to give a monitor on the health of the country as it comes to people and economics. The last page in your circular. It says, the richest 1% in the U.S. surpassing the wealth of the middle class. Got the references here. If the economy is so great, this is August 14, 2019. If the economy is so great, why are car loans default at record level? 90% of people with car loans can't pay. You must accumulate more and more debt in order to keep the economy from collapsing. February 27, 20. Interest rate apartheid. Reports explains why Americans are piling up debt. And the final one is the next generation, next recession will destroy the millennials. Okay, we finished with that so you get an idea. Now, let's do the coronavirus. Corona, like the beer, right? Now, this is an article. There are, I think, 15 or 20 of these. I'm not sure. We'll take a minute. distribute it as best you can, Ray. And after you distribute it, as soon as you finish, give everybody, then we'll resume.
We ain't gonna have enough time.
There's 20, so you got, maybe they're split it between each other. It should be 18 or 19 or 20. But as long as one, if somebody's partnered, then they could share. The session is growing so much, when I come back, I got to put 25 or 30, which is excellent. Everybody has a sheet, and that sheet that you have, Ray has 2. Now I'm going to read, I gave you this handout, but I'm going to read from a short handout that I have that you don't have. The one that you have, we're going to read through that briefly. That's your reference. So I'm going to read this until we, so before we read this article, let us take the last 7 or 8 minutes and let's talk about the coronavirus. Then this will have a little more meaning to you. Okay, so here you have this, if we have, okay, let's do it this way. So we have about 8 minutes. You get it? We're going to discuss the coronavirus. We break and then we come back and we will deal with this. Then you can ask your question and answer. What they're trying to illustrate to you is that you breathe in what they call viruses. From what we understand, viruses are microscopic chemical structures. You know, they have what they call DNA and RNA. These are molecules that are supposed to be in our cells, that are supposed to be the blueprint for how the cell runs and how it runs your body. Okay. And cells have a similar structure. Whether you're dealing with an animal cell, a plant cell, a bacteria, they all have similar structure. They all have a casing, like a balloon, called a cell membrane. And inside the cell membrane of the plant, the animal, and the plant, animal, and the bacteria. And you examine them, they all have a nucleus, and they all have, there's certain things that are in the cell, that are in each of the cells to produce a certain function. One structure is to produce energy, another structure is to make protein. But they all, your cells are identical in their function. So they're 99.9% same, it's the same as different. And these living cells are made up of complex structures you call proteins and fats. And they have a chemical, each of these living cells are undergoing a chemical reaction. And each of these cells interact with all of the neighboring cells. And they have a certain rhythm or law that is followed while they wake you up and that's from the universe, the electromagnetic spectrum, or whatever else you call God. Because a friend of mine told me about homosexuality. And he said, you know, the men, I'm just trying to give you an analogy. A man who was going to become a woman, so he, you know, changes his clothes and do all of the femininity look, the jewel box review. And he told me, no matter what any man does, I'm just using the man as an example, the moon does not recognize that man as a woman. So you can say what you want, but your internal way your body is structured and what finally comes out as quote unquote the female, the hormones and everything when they mature, you see the difference. So you could say whatever you want, that's the difference. The moon does not recognize a man as a woman. So that tells you you are what you are. Or, I can give an example in one of the surgical procedures in the emergency room one time. We had to examine a woman who could not urinate. And when we, myself, another doctor and nurse went to examine why this woman could not urinate, and then we were notified that she had her prostate removed last year. So you got all kind of screwed up stuff here. So regardless of what's here, nature knows who you are and what you are. So nature, the cells of a plant, the cell of an animal, the cell of bacteria you examine, they all equal functioning. There's slight differences. The plant has a cell wall, but the plant cell is identical to the animal cell. The fungus has a cell wall plus another wall. So because they're so similar, you have another entity we discovered called viruses. It's just a little biochemical structure. In the way we discovered, these viruses are able to penetrate into cells of animals. Humans, dogs, pigs, chickens. That's why people who raise chickens and pigs in close contact with animals, they pick up these viruses. So those viruses that was in the virus enters the cell and lives within the cell. Viruses cannot live independent. And when it enters the cell, in the body and enters the cell, the body has an immune system to take care of it. If your immune system is able to handle the virus that enters your body and then penetrates your cell and damages your cell, you won't have symptoms. If your immune system cannot completely handle the infection, remember you got viruses coming in, microscopic viruses that enter your cell, damaging your cell. When it damages enough cell, you get a sore throat, a cold, a cough, a fever. But if your immune system is strong, you can fight it off. So the coronavirus, this one they're presenting to you, infects animals and affects humans. That we know of, it doesn't infect plants. So that's why it can be picked up. People work around animals, pigs, chickens, and other things like that. The coronavirus, when you look it up, they say this virus that's causing the trouble is coronavirus number 19. The only thing I can say, there are millions of coronaviruses. Coronavirus just means that when they look at it under the electron microscope, it looks like a ball, and it has a little, like a hammer. You get a wooden stick, and at the edge you put a round mallet, and that's what it looks like. It got all of these structures from it. There's no such thing as coronavirus 19. There are hundreds and hundreds of coronaviruses. Now, if what these scientists and other people are saying, if you're breathing in millions of these things every day, coronavirus, norovirus, all kind of viruses you don't even know anything about. And whether or not you're going to get sick depends upon your immune system, your ability of your body to fight it off, like any animal. It takes a very long time, it's very expensive to analyze. So you'll take a sample, they'll say you're coronavirus positive. Which of the 500 varieties of coronavirus? They don't know what they're talking about. Because you haven't classified 500 viruses. So if you got millions and millions of viruses, they tell you whatever they want.
So they just
Now, right now, China, the virus is gone. They say it's basically gone. And they said it's spread around the world. So all I'm saying to you, think about it. You're breathing viruses every day. There are hundreds and hundreds of different types of coronaviruses. And they're telling you that you have a danger. So let's break for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then, or if you want me to continue, we'll continue.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please. We got the refreshments in here. We're going to break for about 10 minutes. I got the soup and the croissants. You can come right into the kitchen in 10 minutes and get your soup and croissants, and then we're going to come back 10 minutes after 9. Dr. Lewis will continue. Thank you very much. Come on, I got it all made up. I hope you enjoyed the refreshments. We're going to come back, and Dr. Lewis is going to continue and go all the way to 10 or maybe 10 minutes after 10. I want to give him a big hand, and I hope you enjoyed the refreshments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Lewis, continue.
Okay, we're continuing with our talk, an exchange of information in the lecture, March 11, 2020. We have a handout. And the handout has 3 pages, but we only want to read sections of the first page. And it's just to give you some ideas and thought about the coronavirus. Now, just some notes. So you have to ask yourself the question. You're breathing millions of viruses every day. And millions of these viruses are these coronaviruses. That's number one. And the way you get the virus in the body is usually through the respiratory system. You know, you breathe into your nose or your mouth. And I guess they want you to wash your hands because you're touching things. So if somebody comes by and they sneeze or they cough, and the hands carry so much of the germs, and they touch everything. So the thing is, wash your hands and wash all of the things you touch, which is good and sound information. Because ultimately, the reason you wash your hand is because they're assuming that you're going to put it into your face or your mouth to bring the virus into it. Or that you may touch something, you may eat some food. But basically, the virus enters the body through the nose and the mouth. When you put on a mask, I cannot tell you that mask does not protect you. I would be wrong to say to you it doesn't protect you. But you have to understand, unless you have one of those, I don't know what the technical term from, one of those masks with the double filters on it. That really respirator mask.
Dust mask.
The dust mask or respirator mask, that would probably block the virus in. Any other mask you put over, and what you're doing is you're drawing the air in. Instead of drawing it in though, you're drawing it in around the sides. Whether some scientists or someone can tell you, well, by putting the mask on, you reduce the quantity of viruses that enter your body, so therefore you don't have as much viral load. I can't comment on it. Somebody else might tell you you can. When you inhale these viruses, just remember, you're inhaling into your lungs and respiratory system viruses, bacteria, fungus, dust, dirt, some of everything. And your ability to stay healthy and disease-free basically depends upon your immune system. So I'm not saying the mask doesn't work, but it's your immune system. So I asked the question, if it's that serious, why didn't the government mandate that everybody wear a face mask? But why doesn't the government mandate everybody go get a test? So you have to think this out. You say, I'm breathing millions and millions of viruses every day. And they're loaded with coronavirus, they're loaded with all kinds of viruses. And it's your immune system. So that means you have to keep your immune system up. And the best, one way of keeping the immune system up is you can just use 3 methods. It's a global type of thing. It isn't one thing. So it's your immune system. Immune system is the biochemical and cellular, immunological and energy system your body has, using everything to protect you from these things that enter your body. That's your immune system. So how do you keep yourself as healthy? 1, health or the immune system, stress. The more stress you have, the more your immune system goes down.
We have more stress every day.
In terms of the biochemistry and electromagnetism. Sleep. If you don't get adequate sleep, whatever that means, your immune system goes down. We all know what happens when you lose 2 or 3 days of sleep. You get so tired, you get cough or cold. So the way the body works, biochemically, electrically, magnetically, it needs to have the least stress possible. It needs to have adequate sleep, whatever that means, because sleep helps to cleanse the body of toxins. 3rd, you need a good nutritional diet. So nutrition, the overall best nutrition we all advocate is a plant-based diet, organic. So whatever the reasons, plant-based and organic is best. For nutrients, we can just name a number of different things. 4th thing you have to do is you have to move the body. Whether you take walks, lift weights, probably the overall best way to keep the body moving is to walk. If you walk, especially with a back motion, the thing is to move the muscles. The thing is to move the toxins out of the body. So the body works better in terms of the biochemistry and the immune system if you move the body. You can't be sedentary. And then the 5th thing is, I call it environment. Environment means that you try to get information to help you to see how you can keep yourself healthy. And I use the example as the cause that we say help to cause cancer. The literature is saying that if you develop a cancerous growth, meaning that your cells become abnormal, that 90% of your chances of pushing your cells to a cancerous state comes from epigenetics. Epigenetics means something outside the genes. So they say, oh, you got it genetically. So they're saying something wrong with your genes internally that went wrong and triggered the cells to become cancerous. They're saying 90% of what is going to push your cells into cancer comes from out of, not genetics, environment. So it's the air, the water, and the food that is going to push your cells to cancer. So if you want to be as healthy as you can, and it's difficult, you got to filter your air when possible. You have to filter your water when possible. And you have to eat organic food, basically plant-based. So it's the overall system to keep your immune system strong, to fight off this virus and all the other millions of virus that you are inhaling, is those 3 things. Stress, sleep, good nutrition, exercise, and reading, knowledge. No quick fix, okay? I'm going to take some vitamin C. I'm going to take some multiple vitamins. Immune system doesn't work like that. It's a global thing you have to do, okay? because much of your immune system comes from the interaction between the bacteria in your large intestines and the cells of your body. 90% of your immune system is in your digestive system. And that digestive system is interconnected to the bacteria in your large intestines. And in order for the bacteria in your large intestines to work with and balance off your immune system, that's 90% in your digestive system, is a plant-based diet. So one of the things we find out is a good plant-based diet keeps the bacteria in your large intestine in a certain state, and that state is necessary to interact with the cells of the digestive system, and that's 90% of your immune system that we know of. So that's how diet is really connected to it. Anything else you may want to do, you want to take vitamin C, you want to take multiple vitamins, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't, remember, you have to take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. For those of us who live in New York City and ride the subway for all of our life, most of us never come down with anything. So all viruses cause the same symptom. Whether that virus is going to kill you or it's not, it's going to cause it. Usually to the respiratory system, you get a sore throat, cough, cold. The virus enters the body starts fighting it, your immune system goes up to fight it, you get feverish, cough, cold, and your body usually wipes it out. And that's the only thing that's going to help you with this coronavirus. That's why they don't tell you, do this, do this. Now, my personal opinion, the coronavirus is I'm walking down the street. Oh, a lady's walking down the street, and the first person bumps her to divert her attention, while the other guy's cutting her pocketbook off and stealing her wallet. To me, it's a diversion. To the Iranians, they're bringing up the possibility that it may have been genetically modified to become a stronger strain. And you know they spray in the subway, they spray people's crops and stuff, so we know about biological warfare. So that's why the Iranians say, I didn't say, that's why the Iranians say it could be that. I feel it could be that also. There's nothing wrong with everybody giving your opinion because it could be all of those above. Now, according to what they're reporting, is that China is just about finished with it. So it is cycled out, took a month. My personal suspicion is, if I read that the CDC in the United States says 40,000 people in the nursing home and hospital die every year from pneumonia or flu. 40,000 in the institution. So if 40,000 die a year in the institution, and I heard Trump on one of the videos, they asked him, how many people died yesterday they asked him, how many people died that you know of coronavirus? He talked to his assistant, 9. Now you got 350 million people who supposed to live in the United States. And you Google it up or whatever they know. How many they contracted? We think 20,000. You got 20,000 people who have what? A non-specific syndrome. They got fever, they're coughing, they're cold. You're going to blame now coronavirus when all of the viruses does that. So if you got 350 million people in the United States, 320 million people, and you're telling me you have 20,000 quote-unquote known cases. They don't know. When you put in the lab, it's time-consuming to take certain types of electron microscopes and other things to analyze a specimen. So when they say the CDC has it and all of these other institutions don't have it, it's because it takes a certain type of equipment to do it. It isn't something that you can mass produce, mass test. So that's a suspicious in my mind. Then I ask the question. I pick up the newspaper. Every third page is coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. TV, radio, everything's coronavirus. So to me, they're scaring the people.
Exactly.
Then they call it a pandemic. A pandemic is whatever you want to define. It's all over the world. Okay, it's all over the world. So the head of the, what you call this UN thing says a pandemic. but then you report that you can't find but 3 cases in Africa. You got 1.2 billion people here, and you're telling me that you're including Africa as part of the spread in the pandemic, you can't find 3 cases. Now, Africa may have 1 million, but you wouldn't know because there's no way of testing it. And I spoke to a young man, 2 young men, we were talking, and the statistics. And I mentioned to him the way, in my opinion, how they make it up. When I was on a show with Alambe years and years ago, we were talking about the Congo and a few other different things. And he said, you know, there's 600, Alambe said, there's 600 million Africans in Africa. I said, no, there's not. I said, there's at least 1 billion. I said, but the CIA book, the book they put out said 600. I said, it's 1 billion. And he said, where you getting it from? I said, I made it up, just like they made it up. Nobody's counting. You made it up, you didn't go around counting these people. I didn't count it, so that's what your figure is, this is what my figure is. How you going to say there's AIDS in Africa when the thing is supposed to be roaring? And they said the test that they give you for AIDS, they tell you right there in the test, this test is not supposed to be used to detect AIDS because AIDS is a full spectrum. And they use the damn test on all of you, you're positive, you're negative. And that AIDS test, when you do it, if you're in Canada, you go to different parts. If you do the AIDS test, and you know they took 9 serums, and if it's positive out of 6 or 7 out of 9, then you have HIV. But how is it that in some countries, of the 9 blood specimens, you have to be positive for 3 to say you HIV. You go another set of, no, in Russia and other places they say 6. So you're using the test for AIDS that they say clearly on the back it's not supposed to be used. And then how is AIDS spread all over Africa? They didn't do these blood tests, even if the blood test was accurate. You got over 1 billion people. Who did the test? Nobody did the test. They make it up as they go. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't know how it's a pandemic. When you say to me that you're saying in your, if this is true, we're only talking about what you want to believe. The CDC said this and the other one said this. If you're telling me for what they're willing to say to you, like the CIA counted the Africans and I counted the Africans, if you now want to say that you can't find but 5 cases in Africa, that's what you're saying. It could be 1 million. But because you can't detect it, you can't say anything. So let's go by what the CDC and all the experts say. You can't find but 5 or 10 cases in Africa. So how are you going to say, out of over 1.2 billion people, how could you include Africa as a pandemic? That shouldn't be included. They're saying nothing about Central and South America, Caribbean. You don't mention anything about the coronavirus here. Nothing here. Nothing in South America. Central America, nothing in Africa, nothing in Australia.
Nothing in Russia, really.
Nothing in Russia. So what are you telling me? You're telling me there's an outbreak here, and you're telling me it's here. There's a few cases in the United States, a few cases in Europe. You got 8 billion people, and all they can come up with, there's only 3 cases here, and like you said, they're not reporting it. How could it be a pandemic? Somebody wants you to push the idea, again, it's this, and it's going to do this to you. It doesn't add up. They don't have a way to adequately test it. When you get sick from the cold, it's from any other viruses. Nobody ever can contain the virus. So I don't believe, Arthur Lewis doesn't believe, that there is a pandemic. There's no definition of a pandemic,
Yes, sir.
as far as I'm concerned here. Now,
I got one question.
We can't.
They said you get a flu
There's
shot.
No question.
They said you get a flu shot. I don't care what y'all saying. They said you get a flu shot, it'll stop you from getting the virus.
Okay. We'll address that later, okay? So let's table that right now. Okay. So I'm trying to ask you to think about this, not follow what I say. Now, 10 million people die a year, according to the UN, from starvation. Do you get a bulletin on that every other day?
No.
1 million, they say, died in different parts of the world from malaria. Do you get an alert on that?
No.
1 million plus died of waterborne disease. Do you get an alert on that?
No.
United States, excuse me, United States, Israel, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, they killed 2 million Syrians. Do you get an alert on that?
No.
So why they learn you to, what is it about? That's all I'm asking the question. What is it about? And you keep a mark on listen to TV and radio, and you keep a mark. Just remember, 320 million people in the United States, and they got 10 deaths. And they don't know what those people died of. They say it's coronavirus at this point. So the lady who's walking down the street and bumped to take her attention away, to cut her pocketbook off and to take it, the President of the United States and the rest of them, coronavirus, but now what are they? The coronavirus is when they bump to divert your attention. And then when they cut it off. Now, let's take this 3-page here. I think I have the right one. And I'm going to read from the front sheet of it. I think this is it. It should say Tuesday, March 10, 2020 on the top.
Yes.
Now, I didn't mark yours up because I wanted you to be able to photocopy it straight. But I'm going to read you, it takes about 2 minutes to read you what's here. So, my analogy is, they bump to divert your attention, then they cut the woman's pocketbook off and pick a pocket. The coronavirus. It says here, March 10, 2020, 7:28 a.m. And you look up this title, Trump vows major steps to aid the U.S. economy. Wait now. Now, he's not aiding me or you.
No.
And he's not aiding 95% of the population who's suffering on the inflationary depression, skyrocketing inflation and depression. You got no money to buy a damn thing with. So we're under inflationary depression. So is he talking about us? So Trump vows yesterday major steps to aid the U.S. economy amidst coronavirus. So now he's trying to say the coronavirus is why he's now got to use hundreds of billions of your dollars to aid somebody. That's the virus is the bomb as far as I'm concerned. Washington, President Trump on Monday said he will be taking major steps to gird the economy. I'm reading straight from here. To gird the economy against the impact of the spreading coronavirus outbreak. You got an outbreak of the 320 million people. You got maybe 400 million, 500, who you saying is positive, 10 people dead. Would you call that amazing? He's got to mobilize hundreds of billions of dollars for that?
The flu kills more.
Well, I'm only telling you what they said he said. That's why I feel the bump and the cut is in place. And we'll discuss payroll tax cuts. So now there's something maybe happening with the working people, that they've squeezed us, that now something is going on here. So he says they want to discuss payroll tax cut. We will be discussing, who we? The people who are going to take all your money. We'll be discussing a possible payroll tax cut for relief. So now all of a sudden, the Congress and the federal government feels that the people of the United States need some relief from the payroll tax because of coronavirus that's not infecting anybody. We will be discussing a possible payroll tax. He did not provide details, but said at a news conference will be held Tuesday. House of Representatives Speaker Pelosi and these other Schumer, the top Democrat, reports that any payroll tax cut should be limited to those affected by the virus. So Pelosi and Schumer don't even want to help you. Only people with the virus. You ain't got a few hundred people. They also said that they're crafting new legislation on the heel of an $8.3 billion corona funding enacted last week. So Trump wrote $8.3 billion of your tax, he put it on. That's for the corona epidemic. Now, who's going to get it? Us? Who's getting the 8.3 billion?
He asked for 2.2, they gave him 8. So that rest that he
Okay,
got.
you'll find out here and over here where the money's going. Where the money is going is where they snip the pocket. They're using this as an excuse.
Corporations.
Who said it? Corporations? You say it again?
Trust.
Corporations?
Yeah.
They're bailing out the corporations like 2008. And we'll see here the specific ones. So you know what the deal is. 8.3, among proposals that could be included are ensuring water supplies are maintained to people even if they cannot pay their bills. So are people hurting enough that they realize they got to give them some relief? Or is he just making this excuse up to say these are the people we're going to give it to?
It's made up.
You figure, you come to your own conclusion. Now all of a sudden they worry about whether you can pay your water bill. Or explain, we got to expand unemployment insurance. They want to give you a little bit of unemployment. There's 350 million people in this country, they say. You exclude all of the people who don't work. Of the people between the age of 18 and 64 that are able to and willing to work in this country, they say it's 200 million. 200 million people able and willing to work. Of the 200 million, 156 million have some source of employment. 46 million people in this country who are able to work and want to work cannot work. It's 22% unemployment in this country, past depression level. Maybe he's trying to help them, but I don't believe it. Unemployment insurance, medical leave, providing food for children whose relief on school lunch. He just cut it million the other day. The Trump administration comes as the stock market has plummeted. He's trying to stock market. So when that stock market dropped 1/3, whoever got stock, bonds, you lost 1/3 of your money. And almost anybody in the stock market is the Bloombergs. So he's got to save the stock market.
And the rich know to buy it when it's down, because they know it's going to go back up again after this.
The young man said the rich know to buy it when it's down to go up.
Yes.
In one of the clippings, they will tell you almost all of the money.
That's me.
What happens is they print up the money and give it to their friends. So we're a corporation, right? We got our share of money, 10 billion. You think we're going to build factories with it? You're out of your mind. They have financialized the country. The country's economy is gambling. So you take the 10 billion that you get from the bank, and what you do with it is you buy your stock back. So your stock is at 20%, your stock is at $80. So I get the free 8 billion from Federal Reserve, and I buy my stock back. The stock value now jumps from $80 a stock to 100. So the stock market goes up. That they buy back to drive it up. Then because me and the boys and the girls, ladies and men, the crooks, they take that extra buyback, the money, and they give it to themselves in bonuses. So the stock market, then they get more money and they build it. That's how Bloomberg got his money. He's one of the boys that got in, and that's why I have these few people got all the paper money. Federal Reserve gives it to them, they buy back the stock, they drive up the price, take it out, and give that extra money that they put in, they give it to all their friends as dividend. You get the scam? They get the Federal Reserve 10 billion, drive back the stock, buy back their own stock. The stock jumped from $80 to 100. Then they take that extra 80 they just put in to drive it up, and to give it, they all take bonuses and they all take everything and it goes back. That's how the rich got richer and richer and richer and richer.
Yeah.
Bloomberg and all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so to me, the way I read this is a smoke screen that he want to help the little guy. Then it tells you the stock market. Now, I'm going to read you as we wind down, and then we have a question, take another 2 minutes. You don't have this sheet, I don't believe. I read you 2 minutes and then you get the gist. So we know they're trying to salvage the stock market. Because when the stock market goes down, then the bank can't give dividends. Basically, you have a Ponzi scheme where a very small percentage of the people, like Trump, both Trump and Bloomberg, are getting super rich while the economy is crashing for any number of reasons. So let me read you this. This is the same day. So he put this out, we're gonna help the little guy. Now let's see what he says. White House likely to pursue, let me just, okay. White House likely to pursue aid for the shale company hit by the oil shock. Do you know what the shale company is? The shale companies, you know how they drill for oil, they drill in the ground and bring the oil up. Well, there's oil also trapped in rocks. Not, you know, you go into there and you hit a big pool of oil, right? And then you suck it up. But in addition to that, there's pockets of oil in rocks, not in big supply. So in order to get it, you have to crack the rock.
Fracking.
Frack it. Crack the rock. And then you have to put in all kind of poison chemicals and stuff to dissolve out certain impurities and to force the oil up. In the process of fracking and putting the chemicals in the ground to push the oil up, you poison the water table. So in about 20 or 30 years, we all going to be drinking poison water. So that's the first thing you do. But because there's a limited amount of oil in a certain area of rock, you got to frack a lot to get it. The expense, these fracking companies, we're a fracking company, we go to the bank and we borrow money to buy all this equipment to frack. And so we frack and we buy equipment, but we need $60 a barrel to sell on the international market to get our money back, to make a profit, and to pay the banks back. $60. Now, countries who dig for the oil, get the oil in big pockets, they can bring it up relatively inexpensively. Okay? But the fracking is very expensive to get to the oil. So now they're mentioning the fracking. Whatever is going on, so they say Saudi Arabia and Russia, they are competing for oil. So the oil has been at $35 a barrel, 40, and now dropped to 25. These fracking companies are all going to go broke. These fracking companies owe the banks hundreds of billions of dollars. So when you hear Trump talk about aiding the fracking, which are broke and bankrupt, he's going to pump the money into the fracking, and the fracking going to give it right back to the bank. So he's trying to prevent the oil companies from going out and the banks. There's two reasons the banks are never going out. The other problem that the United States has is the petrodollar. Remember, everybody had to use the dollar to buy oil? And that kept the fact that the United States can get what it needs and only had to give paper. Most of the countries in the world have dropped the US, they don't use the dollar. And now that oil is selling at a much lower price, then that means you use less dollars. So United States government, the Treasury Department, and it's like we're at our house and we're trying to pay the bills for the week. We need $2,000, we only have $1,000. You're in big economic problem.
Big time.
The United States got major problem. Nobody's buying their Treasury bonds. Nobody. So the Federal Reserve buys it. So they issue the bond and buy it back. They're not using the US dollar. We already went through that with the African, they're dropping the US dollar. People are bartering. So the world is using less US dollars because they're bartering. Less US dollars because they're sanctioned. And now that the oil has dropped, the use of the dollar is going down. So the United States has a crisis in the currency. They're broke. And this is what they're hiding with the coronavirus. The economy, the way these people run, is broke. They don't want the dollar anymore. Nobody wants the Treasury notes. The other problem that they have is why they go to the repo market every day to Federal Reserve have to give them 10, 15 billion a day. They have what they call derivatives. Derivatives are just contracts. You make a derivative, we make a deal. Okay, I bet you $100 that the temperature won't go above 50 tomorrow. I bet you that it will. So somebody's gonna lose the bet.
Right.
So they bet with each other, and I lose the bet. Now I gotta pay him 30 billion. I don't have it, so I go to the Federal Reserve. Can you give me 30 billion so I can pay my debt off him? You got hundreds, you got trillions of dollars worth of that. That's why they keep giving these banks 100 billion every day, and it's still not enough. So you have the banks that are basically bankrupt. They owe each other money they don't do. You have the banks that are not being repaid by the fracking. You have the U.S. dollar no longer being used. And why did the stock market crash? It crashed because the people who know the deal, they got their money out. So one of the reasons it crashed is because the oil companies, look, if you're an investor, you say, look, you know what's going on. You got you're getting the latest news from the people who monitor. Bloomberg and them are idiots. They don't know anything about it, but they have their specialists. Say, look, the oil prices drop. You know what's going to happen. You know the fracking can't pay. Get out now. The fracking industry and some of the big oil companies are going down on this one because they can't sell the oil. So you get out first. The stock market goes down. So now you have a problem. The oil companies are not giving their dividends in the stock market. The banks are not giving their dividends. All these people who depended upon the oil industry and free money, they can't pay the dividends to the stockholders. So the big guys got out, the thing went down. So Trump is attempting to use the coronavirus, in my opinion, masquerading on how he's going to help me pay my water bill, and realize that New York City just went up on both of my buildings, thousands of dollars every month. And they're strangulating all of us here. And now you're telling me, you care? The water bill is going up. They're killing us. So now what he wants to do, he wants to save the fracking industry. So now the fracking industry owes $100 billion to the banks, they can't pay. If Trump doesn't get the $100 billion to the shale company, then the banks are going to fail. Then the bank's going to come back for another $100 billion. Insurance company's going to fail. It's cascading. So let's read it. That is my take of it. You hit the young lady, unfortunately. You divert attention. That's the coronavirus. You cut her pocketbook off and you take it. So now here's your president. And I'll read it through quickly. It'll take about 3 or 4 minutes. White House likely to pursue federal aid for the shale company hit by oil shock. That's it. Then they add here coronavirus. Oh, the coronavirus to the shock. The White House is strongly considering pushing federal assistance, your bailout money, for an oil and natural gas producers hit by plummeting oil prices. And then they always put amidst the coronavirus outbreak. The coronavirus has nothing to do with it.
Right.
As industry officials close to the administration, clamor for help, according to the people. Bail us out, bail us out, bail us out. President Trump has touted the growth of the oil and natural gas production under his administration, celebrating the rise politically, blah, blah, blah. But many oil and gas firms were hammered Monday by the price war that broke out between Saudi Arabia and Russia, driving oil prices down. White House officials are alarmed at the prospect that the numerous state shale companies, many of them deep in debt, could be driven out of the business if the downturn in oil prices turn into a prolonged crisis for the industry. They're already broke. The federal assistance is likely, not better bailout. You get a federal assistance. Can you go to any of the bank and say, I need federal assistance of about $50,000 to cover my bills with no intentions of paying it back? No. But you see what's happening here. The federal assistance is likely to take the form of a low-interest government loan to the shale. So I'll give you a loan. You ever get one of these loans? They got loans where they take the loan out and guess when the interest is due in the payment. 100-year loan. Would you like a 100-year loan?
Hell yeah.
No. You understand? They give you the money, you don't have to pay it back for 100 years. So here they're gonna give them a government loan, the federal government likely to form a low-interest government loan to the shale companies whose line of credit to major financial institution has been choked off and cut off. So if the banks have cut them off, they can't pay the banks back, they don't give them your money, what do you think they're gonna do with the money? Even major oil companies are threatened by the oil price pump. It's not the shale. All of them are gonna go down on this one. They were trying to knock out Venezuela
But then, yeah.
and Iran to let the U.S. company. What happened is, quickly here, we're in front. After the 1974 oil shock, when the Arab cut it off, for some reason these people made a rule. All of the oil that is taken out of the ground from the United States of America, in Venezuela's constitution, the oil belongs to the people.
Yes.
But in the United States Constitution, it belongs to the corporation. So in other words, after that 1974, they made a law that all the oil that the United States, pulled up, the private company pulled up, has to stay for domestic consumption. That was 1974. And when 2015 came, they changed the law, allowing the U.S. oil companies to sell that oil. Didn't have to stay here for consumption. You sell it on the foreign market. They said, why are we going to leave the oil here when we make more money overseas, right? In 2015, the oil companies that had to use the oil for domestic, they now started going to sell oil internationally, right? But there was nobody to buy the oil because everybody buying oil already had buyers. So that's why you had to knock out Venezuela. And then you try to knock out Iran. And then, you see, that was one of the bigger reasons why they tried to let the U.S. get in. U.S. shale oil to get in. Okay? But now that the price is so low, the shale is collapsed. Okay. Even major companies are threatened by the oil slump. You're talking about almost the biggest industry of this country collapsing, the whole place is going to go down. So they're trying to salvage the oil companies and the banks. Occidental Petroleum on Tuesday slashed the dividends 11%. And the people say, man, I don't care what happened. I want my money. You can't give me money. They pull their money out, the stock market crash. Everybody else is stuck. Yeah, go to the bank and ask them for your money. Any money you put in the bank now belongs to the bank. They say your money deposit is now a loan to the bank. Let's go on. We almost finished. One of the companies, so remember, they're talking to big guys, Continental and Exxon, and you're talking to little guys. You're talking the economic collapse of the country at this point. One of the companies hardest hit was Continental Resources, founded by Harold Hamm, a Trump supporter and an advisor to the president on energy issues. He advised you, It lost more than half of its market value one day. Though it recovered 8% Tuesday and blah, blah. 5 more minutes. But this guy, Harold, said he wanted to discuss the number of jobs at stake. He don't care about the work. They're going to stick that in their pocket. And how this could jeopardize their jobs in the economy and in the economies in producing states across America. Pennsylvania, California. So they tell you, Pennsylvania, California, Dakotas and Texas, they're going out. The oil industry go out, these states are going out. So you're talking about a major collapse of the country when it comes to all of the interconnection. He added that while Continental was in a strong financial position, you just lost half the damn value. How are you going to be in a strong financial position? I wonder why they even discussed this in the open. I mean, we knew it, but you got to pick it up just to bring it to other people's attention. Other companies would be likely to draw on the government lending program. They're all going to get bailed out. Mike Summers, COO of American Petroleum Institute, told reporters Monday that the oil and gas industry is not seeking a bailout. Just a loan, low interest rate that will never be repaid. It's not a bailout. Seeking a bailout, not seeking a bailout, which represents the top 25 independent oil and gas producers of the United States. They're talking about all of them got their hand out. This is this is an economic breaker for the United States. They're gonna have to give it to them. There's nobody buying the U.S. oil. They try to push the oil into Europe. So why am I going to buy the gas from you, which is twice as expensive from Russia? Because of Trump, the whole attitude of the United States to the world is you're asshole countries. The world understands. That's why they say, let them down easy. Told Russia and Saudi Arabia, break the damn oil company of the United States, but take it, gotta do it easy. Bleed them. Don't let them trigger. We don't have to trigger a war. Because when we do the next one, my turn come around, you're going to see the United States doesn't have anything. The aircraft carriers are ineffective.
Right.
So I don't know what war going to break out.
You got no one to fly the plane anyway.
Well, we're almost finished here. So 25, this is the entire oil corporation tied up to the banks. The whole shebang is here. Was prepared, this was representative of the 25 independent oil and gas producers in the United States. When they say independent, that means all private. And in a statement that shale producers were willing to work with our nation leaders to solve the problem. Just, what problem they talking about? Just give them the money. That's how they're going to solve the problem. You tried to knock out Venezuela. You tried to knock out Iran. It didn't work. The ball game is up. I'm an African in the United States of America. And I got to stabilize my family before I make the jump. But it's for my children and grandchildren. And it's for all of you, your children and grandchildren. The continent is moving. 1/2 of the entire population increase on the earth in the next 30 years is going to be Africa. Everybody else is losing. Moody's Investment Service report that oil and gas firms have $40 billion in debt coming due this year. Given the sector's shale output, investors have been reluctant to put any money into the industry. They said that they don't have it. But help for the natural gas producers may provide a political difficult list for the administration, in part because they face about. They're going to give it to them. That's it. Questions? You got 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes to make a comment and question. So my contention is the coronavirus is a cover for a major financial collapse that's in progress in the United States of America at this point.
So what's
When the United States cracks, it's going to really crack. I have no solutions other than the survival of my immediate family with the community that I live in and the rest of the African community. I discussed this with a relative of mine, and we said the financial scam where 10 million homes were lost, mainly white, 90% white, 40 million people, 4 people to a family, they lost their home.
Yeah.
And I said we discussed it. We didn't know the fraud was coming. We didn't know the scam was coming. So the question was that, the people who lost their home, if they knew that it was a scam by the banks, insurance company, would they have signed up, yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Who would have signed up if you know that the scam would make you lose your home?
No.
How many people would sign up?
No.
The fact that if the people who lost their homes knew that it was a scheme, nobody signs up. That's one of the reasons why when they do these things, I apologize. I thought I had cut this off. That's one of the reasons why the government and these people want to cut you off from information, because they don't want you to know the next scam coming.
Right.
You can't protect yourself. If the people would have known the scam, they wouldn't have signed up.
Right.
You had to be absent of knowledge of the scam. So the president is coming. Very bad. Just put it under someplace. Yeah, anyway. I thought I'd cut it off. That's why they don't want you to know what's coming on. So the coronavirus, in my opinion, is the bump. Coronavirus, everybody looking, Corona ain't gonna do this. You know it's not gonna do anything. If you gonna get it and die, you gonna die. There's nothing you gonna do about it. You know what? You survived
Time is up.
the subway, the coughing and the spit. I've been in the subway all my life. I've been in the hospital, nursing homes. I've never been sick. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you understand. You read this and this. The country is in a financial crisis. Globally.
So what's the sense in all of this? I mean, it raises the question, so what? I mean,
Well, that's the whole point. I reverse the question. What good does it do to learn this? What could you do about it? The first thing is, you don't become the victim of the scam. And the second thing is, I reverse the question to you, why is it that it's important for the government and all of these people to hide it? If it wasn't important, why isn't it that they hide it from you every day and lie
because
about
we're
it?
a step behind, because our eyes are half closed, because we're not awakening each other and spreading the news that we need in order to get onto this game.
I agree with you. Now, who controls the mass media? He's got a question because he's putting responsibility on us on why we're in the problem.
We have to control the mass media to have a network and to have an agenda. We don't need that anymore. We need information that can spread in the flash of a moment. We need to know how the game is played. And the thing is, the powers that be see that a lot of us are getting hip to the game. We're getting hip to the politics. The reason they're passing money back and forth to each other is because they're connected. They're connected because when they give a 1% tax break to the rich, that's millions of dollars to a billionaire and multi-billionaire. They use millions of dollars from that to give to the candidate that's going to continue giving them that. We allow money and the media to influence what we are voting for instead of having an agenda in which we don't care who gets in office as long as he puts that agenda forward. And we don't have much time. We have to save America now because the federal government right now is the only thing that stands between racists with machine guns who've been wanting to get at us for over a century, who blame the federal government because they think the government is protecting us. Why would they think the government is protecting us and doing us favors? Because they want to get to us and they can't. If that collapses, there's nothing really to stop us from those aggressive white people who've been...
What's his question?
Wait a second.
My question is, why aren't we informing each other about what to do instead of just hearing the same thing? We hear, I'm sinking in the mud, and here is more proof that I'm sinking in the mud. I'm sinking in the mud, while other people have their head above the water.
Okay, can I reply to you?
Good.
Yeah.
First of all, you have a legitimate complaint, and you are correct. You're on the level that you're on the level of saving America. You're on the level of going to the voting machine and pulling the lever, and you have that right. We're not on that level.
Okay.
Listen to what I'm saying. We're not on that level.
Go ahead.
We're not discussing that level. Now, wait now, every speaker here, with the assistance and the permission of the audience, allows us to come before them to present a certain platform. The platform that I decided to present was at a certain level, had nothing to do with politics, had nothing to do with voting.
Okay.
I'm not the one here to say whether voting is going to help you or not. I'm here to bring you on a level to try for us to discuss what is happening on a global and a national level that have 95% of all Americans, the white ones, the black ones, and the red ones. We're all in the same boat. And according to Chris Hedges, who went around, he wasn't the only one, he put in his book, the sacrifice zones. And he went to the indigenous reservation, he went to the Camden, New Jersey, and he went to Appalachia. And what he's trying to do is say, to show, these are the sacrificed people. The indigenous are sacrificed. The majority of the African people concentrated in these urban centers, and he used Camden, and the masses of white people who are in Appalachia in these Rust Belt.
You know what's going on with the oil?
No, let me finish for a second. But we're trying to get a snapshot of what's happening to human beings living in the political structure of the United States of America. We're not talking race here. The reason we're not talking race, because when these white people came to this country, they brought in their slaves from England. They were slaves there, and they were slaves there, indentured servant, to let the people here and the white people, or whoever listened to it, to understand that they were slaves. When they got here, you came over as peasants, and you still slave the way these people threw it down. Now, you pick it up anytime you want. If you decide that you want to go to the poll, and if you believe that by voting Trump or by voting the other one, you have that belief.
Right, you see it before you every day.
You have the
You see-
belief.
You see the tug of war.
We are not
going on.
dealing with that. Let me explain to you. You have to understand, we're not dealing on that level. You deal on the level. We're not dealing on that level. Wait, let me explain something. Everybody here is surviving some kind of way. Okay?
Next question.
I have a question.
Let me reply.
That's the last question right there.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, I understand what you're saying, I understand what the brother's saying, but I'm seeing the white people, they don't take that point of view. I'm not interested in saving America. I'm looking at America, the white people, for whatever reason, they're not voting their interests. They're voting their hatred of black
Because they
people,
hate us.
and we have to organize, we gotta unite among ourselves in case, the worst case, we gotta save ourselves.
Okay, let me.
We at the worst case.
Okay, but let me just say this. The level at which we presented the information was a global and a national level. With history there, so you'll understand where you are. The purpose, now, it isn't to pick at it and say, well, we're going to get out of this vote. Or the white folks this. Look, I tried to do the best that I could in the short period of time to help you understand
The situation
the situation we in. I'm not interested in
I thought
whether,
that's what we would do
I
every
am
week.
not
That's why I said that.
interested,
I'm sorry.
I am not interested in whether the white people understand why they're in that position. I'm not here for that. I'm here to provide you with a certain level of information, national, international, so you can go
and give it to the others.
you
that don't
begin
know.
to expand. I don't deal with
It's about awareness.
votes. I don't deal with how white people, I'm saying to you, and I'm not saying it, the government of the United States of America, if you believe them, are stating that the white people are in horrendous shape. I didn't say to you who put them there, and I'm not saying to you in the lecture here how we're going to get them out. I'm letting you know the shape that they're
They're
in.
telling the white.
All right, 1 minute. Listen, I heard.
One more question.
One, short.
Wait a second.
About the virus.
No, forget the virus now. The short period of time, let me shut up and let the few people make the comment, and you have enough time for that, okay? Go to a political rally, you educate the white folks. I'm not here for that.
Black folks.
Okay, go on.
Okay, I have a question about the vulnerable people who have more of a chance of dying from it. And I'm talking about children. I'm talking about people who have asthma, who have their immune system is already compromised. And so they need to, I want to know how can we help them?
Okay, you know how you're going to help them?
She knows about the bump.
This is not the first time. The answer to your question is I don't have an answer. Because the people, we have had all kind of viruses. People got the flu. Millions of people have the flu every year in the United States. Almost nobody ever dies.
Okay.
So what's the big deal?
That's the bump.
Because of
One
Next
last
question. What's the
question.
other? What's the big deal? If you're going to make it, you're going to make it. Nobody how it's gonna be. Let's understand this.
The 401, if the economic system
No,
is going.
question.
The 401k, should we keep up with it because of this economic boom, or should we?
We presented you a certain level. Now you must do the homework
The choice.
and you figure out what you have to do. We're not here to solve the problem. We're trying to give you a formula
Information.
of what you're up against.
Yeah.
Do you know what inflationary depression is? When the masses of people have no money to spend and the thing is skyrocketing, we talking about whether a white person understands or not. As the lady said on WBA, white people are niggerized. They don't understand they've been brought down to the same level. The indigenous, the Africans, and the whites. 95% of the people have been brought down to the ground.
That's right.
Voting or no damn voting.
One more question, go ahead, miss, and that's it.
Okay.
Question.
Based on what you're saying, I was thinking about Fred Hampton, how he was getting all different people together, that's why they get after him. And I think that this is just a big mind game, and they're pitting black and whites and this against each other to keep the confusion going while they're doing their little stuff, on the top. So I think sometimes we're like distracted in certain things, like, this is, what we're gonna do, all my job, everybody's talking about the corona, that's the new thing, coronavirus. It's like distractions, and they don't really look at other things that's going on, and most of us are not educated.
Question?
Okay.
You've been surviving. The best answer I can give you, continue to do what you're doing. And if you want relief, as a gentleman feel, go to your congressman, your senator, and your president, and you ask them for the solution. I don't have the solution.
You put them there, and you.
I didn't put anybody in any place.
Ladies and gentlemen,
But then,
You